it does undermine our credibility. It is true, however, that the people who negotiated that deal point out there was not a treaty, and it was assurances rather than guarantees, although both of those words translate into zavedenia, both in Russian and Ukrainian, so I could add to the misunderstanding, but the negotiators from the Ukrainian side understood this. But still, a great power like the United States cannot get away with those sort of semantics. So in that sense, it was a mistake. And the third point is this. It's funny, but sometimes politics can be funny. The Obama administration believes that non-proliferation is very important. The policy on Russian aggression against Ukraine, in direct violation of the Budapest Memorandum, was a sharp blow against non-proliferation efforts, as also was the Obama administration's policy in Libya, where we essentially took down Gaddafi, who had given up his weapons of mass destruction as well, albeit to the Bush administration. So when countries that give up their, or governments that give up their weapons of mass destruction find themselves under military attack, that is a serious disincentive to future non-proliferation.
If you allow me, with the elections coming, we're going to see a change of the team in the White House regardless. The Clintonites may be back, or the Republicans will be in, or maybe Bernie Sanders will finally show that there is a left alternative in the U.S. That means that there will be a shift. And the question is, what about the bipartisan view on Ukraine? Do you see the beginning of certain U.S. policy towards Ukraine, towards perception of Ukraine, that would be shared by both parties, that would be shared across the board? Or we are still in this premature stage when different ideas are thrown in, and we're basically in brainstorming stage? How do you think Ukraine will be perceived? So we don't have to worry which administration is in at the moment.
Well, I think regrettably, you will have to worry about which administration is in at the moment, because and you have to worry about what administration is in currently at the moment versus one that will be in the future, because there will be substantial differences, because bipartisan consensus has largely been shaped inside the legislative branch and maybe within the think tank community and the policy community. But it is really a president who drives security policy, and a president can withstand even bipartisan consensus, as was the case in providing lethal military assistance to Ukraine. This president has a point of view that Europe is a subsidiary interest. He has given public statements in which he says that Ukraine is not an existential threat to the United States. He's made comments that the crisis in Ukraine is not an existential threat to the United States. He has sort of downplayed the level of commitment that the United States should be making to this part of the world. And I think there are people who will be in this campaign, and the national security establishment in the Democratic Party and in the Republican Party don't really agree with this. I think there will be a more Eurocentric policy. There will be the president has responded to some of the Russian threat in upgrading NATO and creating more of a forward presence, and certainly a very vigorous economic response. But on the key issues of giving Ukraine the wherewithal to defend itself and cooperating perhaps even in military technological cooperation, the U.S. is making some steps, but is sort of far behind what I would say is the desirable end, and the end that I would say the majority of former secretaries of defense, national security advisors, secretaries of state, and even some undersecretaries of state might recommend. So I think that the intellectual ground is fairly consistent in pushing for a more attention to Europe, more attention to the security needs of Europe, because you have to remember that just a few years ago, at the end of the Cold War, despite NATO expanding, 250,000 troops of the U.S. were on the territory of Europe as a absolute guarantee of security. Today it's roughly 60,000. So Russia is speaking about encirclement, but the actual effective policy has been a drastic scaling down of the military presence challenging Russia, and that has not led to Russia feeling more secure. It has actually led Russia to feeling more aggressive against its neighbors. And so I think there will be a healthy debate and discussion. I think that discussion is not really that conflicted between Republicans and Democrats on these key issues. There is a difference between Donald Trump, who is running an insurgent, non-establishment campaign, and what kind of foreign policy he might propose, because he has never been a part of that security debate, and he just unveiled a national security set of advisors that has people scratching their heads because no one has ever heard of them.
So basically,
Go ahead.